Hey, this is Fred Lybrand and Jody Lybrand, and our goal is to answer a few questions about homeschooling. Now, to do that, we want you to know a little about us, or we want you to know a little bit about us. So I'm going to let Jody introduce herself, grew up, education, kids, basics.
Basics. Grew up in Montgomery, Alabama. I've been in Texas many years now, and went to the University of Alabama, met Fred, got married, and we have 5 kids. One that just graduated from college and got married, and one that's about to start her 3rd year in college, and one that's going to be a freshman, and then 2 more at home. And we've been doing Robinson for many years, and this would have been great to have somebody asking and answering questions when we first started. We really didn't know anybody else doing Robinson at the time, and just felt a little lost. So we hope that this will be of benefit to everybody that watches it.
So I'm Fred. I went to the University of Alabama, studied English literature. Jody didn't say it, but she studied early childhood education and stayed and got a master's in early childhood, and has taught school for a number of years as well before we started having children. I have a degree from Dallas Theological Seminary. I have a doctorate from Phoenix Seminary. The thing to hold on to is we grew up in Alabama. That'll play into the conversation a little bit, but the truth is that we got into homeschooling for academic, not religious reasons. I know when we were looking at it, there's a lot of concern about what schools are teaching, etc. And you may have that concern, and I'm cheering for you, but we were in a context where we just really wanted to make sure our kids got a good education. Some of my background kind of set up our initial conflict with homeschooling. I had a background with a dad who was an attorney who made me argue both sides all my life. I went to a public school, and then I went to a private school. I took Latin in private school, English literature, kind of a fine arts orientation. And as a result, I came up with more of a classical model of education. Jody came up with more of a school model. And so guess what's going to happen when we try to start homeschool? Well, I'm thinking, hey, stay out of their way. Let them read. Let them learn math. Let them have a good time. Let them just be little sponges. That's what I want them to be. I wanted to give them the kind of school I wanted, which is stay out of my way and just buy me enough stuff to learn. She, however, wanted a scope and sequence, right? She wanted a plan. She wanted the plan to be clear, precise, and to produce a good final result. And so as a result, we had a bit of a tension in our marriage about the kids. You know, marriage was great, and then the kids came, and then we had to work through, the whole game. So what we want to do is try to answer some questions, but really tell you how we think about it and why we landed personally on Robinson curriculum. What happened basically is we weren't getting anywhere. We weren't agreed, and we came across Robinson, and Robinson was sort of a non-curriculum curriculum. It gave Jody enough structure, and it gave me, in my mind, enough freedom. Now, we had bought into a classical model of education before that, which means we would insist on more or less a trivium, the idea of kind of a data stage up through about the age of 10. Children just absorb information, data, content. They're constantly learning, liking to memorize things. That's when Awana programs, that kind of thing, flies for a kid. Then they move, 12-ish, 14 for sure, into that logic stage. They're arguing, they're debating. If you've seen this in your child as they turn, 10, 11, 12, 13, it's normal. It's a brain development thing. They're not out to get you. They're not suddenly defying you. They just want to think things through. And the logic is how it all fits together. Well, the later stage is the rhetoric stage. You might call it the communication stage. And that's how you use information with other people. And so those 3 pieces are how you learn, which really gets to the 3 points we want to talk about. Now, I'm going to talk more because I do. and Jody will bust in and fix things, or I'll call on her as we go along. But I want to up front here tell you about three issues that you've got to keep in your mind in our thinking. And the issues are strategic and valuable and long-term. And they work out to be this: philosophy and sovereignty and responsibility. Okay, philosophy. Here is the key to homeschooling. You have got to not try to turn it into school homing. You're not going to compete with the school system. You don't have that many teachers. You don't have that kind of facilities. You don't have those kind of advantages. I'm going to argue you don't need what you see in mass education. But if you do not understand this, you'll try to replicate school at home. And guess what's going to happen when you do that? You're going to try to teach them all the subjects and know it all yourself and learn it all yourself. And guess what? You're going to either wear yourself out, freak out, or give up and send the kids to school before you may even be ready to. Now, I got to stress, we're fans of school, fans of mass education. Helped start a private school. It's on the original board. It's going great. But I'm really just a fan of education. And if you find a mass ed context that's great for you, more power to you. However, homeschooling has some distinct advantages, but only if your philosophy is not to repeat school. Here's the philosophy that we have. We're trying to teach our children to learn how to learn. That's all we care about. We want them to learn how to learn. You know, people that graduate college, in 10 years, only 15% of them are still in the field they studied for. Everybody has to relearn, get retooled, especially in these economic times, the uncertain future. This skill of learning how to take a subject that you don't know and teaching it to yourself is worth its weight in gold. That's what, in our thinking, Robinson does for us. In fact, when I found Robinson's material and started reading it, I went, oh, somebody who gets it. That's the measure, obviously. If somebody agrees with me, hey, they get it. But he had some great insights and some great perspective that was organized around this same idea. It's a philosophy, and the philosophy is to teach the children to learn how to learn. It's not to teach the children. It's to teach them to learn how to learn. All of our kids are way ahead of us in certain areas, particular math. You know, the only answer I have for them is the Pythagorean theorem. It's a big joke around here. And I luck out a lot of times, and that's what they needed to hear. But the truth is that philosophy's got to get into your brain. You're not trying to be the school system. You're not being the teacher to the students. You're being a facilitator where they learn to learn. The second thing is sovereignty. Sovereignty works like this. You're in charge. You're in control over that home. It's your home. And as a result, how you approach it for your kids is going to be a little bit different than the way we do. We're not trying to cookie cutter and replicate this. You've got to discern the personality of your children and the love and the affections they have for different activities. You want to build in to the context of what you can build in. And that's going to mean you are sovereign over it. Our oldest son, Tripp, has mild cerebral palsy. And that created its own challenges, quite frankly. So you've got to be sovereign in that home. The last part is responsibility. That means the child's responsible. You know, you can do it all right, and a child can still walk away and say, I don't buy it. I mean, that's awful. That's the risk you take. It's not the way to bet. But if you want to study this in the Scripture, Ezekiel 18 says it point blank. Children have a will. They can make up their own minds. We're just trying to put the odds in their favor to give them the equipment that they need for college, for life. That's why we settled on this. What do you want to add? Phew.
Those things are very important and foundational. And we hope now to get into some practical aspects of how we've done it. And I think the most important thing to point out is we haven't done it the same way all these years. We've changed a lot of things a lot of times.